Welcome to We Learn, Virtual Learning Network. Today we'll study about Indian political traditions. Indian political traditions, what are they? The beginning of the systematic study of ancient Indian political thought can be traced back to the nationalist movement. Most of the important works on Indian political thought were written during this period in response to the criticism that ancient India made no contribution to political thought and political science was not a separate and distinct science in India. This particular systematic study was written to make sure in response to or to counter the criticism that ancient India, or some people said that ancient India made no contribution to political thought and political science. Nature of early Indian political thought. Let's study what's it. Till recently, many scholars were of the opinion that India did not contribute anything to the evolution of political thought, that India was not part of political thought. It was believed that political thought in ancient India, if there was any, was at best a part of Hindu philosophy or Hindu religion. So only Hindu religion was ensured a part. In other words, it was thought that the Hindu science of polity did not have a separate identity. So problem of nomenclature. The confusion arises because of the large number of parallel terms used in ancient India for politics. There were several terms for politics. Which were they? Raj Dharma, which means duties of the ruler. It means the ruler who is presenting or who is ruling the people, what are his or her duties. Shastra Vidya, the knowledge that the ruler should have. When a ruler is ruling people, what kind of knowledge the ruler should have. Rajya Shastra, meaning statecraft or science of state. It means how to have that science of managing state or the craft of managing state. Dandaniti, the ethics of awarding punishment, means if someone does anything wrong, punishment has to be awarded to ensure proper behavior the next time. Niti Shastra, science of ethics regulating the lives of both the ruler as well as the ruled. Science of ethics means what are the principles, what are the guidelines which should a ruler as well as the ruled should follow. A guidelines can not only be for the ruled, it should also be for the ruler. Arthashastra, the art of acquisition and maintenance of land. It means how to acquire and maintain the land whichever is acquired, means how to expand one's business. Next, concept of Matsya. In ancient India, we have a term equivalent to the Western concept of the state of nature. It's called Matsya, Dharma and Danda. Let's see what's it. For Bhikhu Parekh, Hindu political thinkers conceptualized political life in terms of two central concepts, namely Dharma and Danda. Both are dependent on each other. The term Danda means discipline, force, restraint, constraint or punishment. Dharma is that which holds society together. Dharma means doing your work, whatever is assigned to you, in the best, honest and possible manner, in the best way and in the most sincere manner. Danda means the discipline which is required to keep people under control or under constraint. And when people do anything wrong, proper discipline has to be maintained. It is derived from the Sanskrit root dhr, meaning to hold. Society could be held together when each individual and groups does his or its specific duties. Only a society can be held together when people do their work, whatever is assigned to them, in the proper manner. This was sought to be achieved by following the Varnashram Dharma, Varna Dharma, or adhering to one's duties as member of a group to which one belongs, that is caste in Indian concept or in Indian context. It means whatever duties are assigned to you, you should do that, but according to your own caste, which was considered very important. The Dharma Shastra writers concentrated on exploring the dharma of individuals and social groups, including the government. They focused on finding out or exploring the dharma of people as well as social groups, including the government. In contrast to the approach of Dharma Shastras, the authors of Arth Shastras were interested in the organization and mechanics of danda. Means, how can danda be done or how it needs to be enforced upon people. The two approaches of Dharma Shastras and Arth Shastra differed mainly in their subject matter, one choosing to explore political life from the standpoint of dharma, the other from that of danda. Both chose to explore political life only, but Dharma Shastra include how to analyze different concepts of danda and Arth Shastra how to analyze different concepts of dharma. So what are the sources? As has already been pointed out, politics in India was not considered an independent and autonomous discipline. One has to dig out the conceptions of politics from the host of sources which deal about the larger questions of human life, many religious and philosophical in nature. Politics was considered a part of philosophical and larger questions of human life only. It was not considered away from them. The important sources for the studies of politics are Vedic literature, Dharma Sutras and Smritis, epics and Puranas, Arth Shastras, Buddhist and Jain literature, coins and inscriptions, Greek and Chinese accounts, other literature sources and epigraphy. These are some of the sources by which we can study Indian political thought, and they are really useful to study and to analyze different concepts of political thought. Some drawbacks and limitations exist everywhere. So let's see what were the drawbacks and limitations. The main intellectual preoccupation of ancient Indians was philosophy, and it lacked in political or material speculations. The Indians never knew the feeling of nationality. The practical implications of these conclusions were dangerous to the demand of self-rule in India. When nationality feeling was missing, demanding of self-rule was considered dangerous. So the characteristics of Indian political thought. Political life conceived within the framework of dharma. It says, one cannot find in ancient India any classes exclusively dealing with political and social life, which is comparable to the Republic and the politics of Plato and Aristotle. A supernatural element is present in all the writings. Whatever writings we see or we analyze, a supernatural element is present in every writing, whether it's Plato or it's Aristotle. Influence of ethics. What are ethics? Ethics are right ways of doing things or performing your duties in the right possible manner. The social thought in ancient India not only assures certain fundamental principle of morality, but it always seeks to direct the material life as well. So moral codes of conduct, this is what ethics are. The influence of caste-based social structure on politics. Caste that occupied a prominent place in all social speculation during the later Vedic period and had a direct bearing on the theory of government. Caste was considered very important. Varnashram dharma in the society was fixed on the basis of caste only. Means whatever dharma or whatever work has to be assigned to the individual, that only has to be basis or that only has to be based upon the caste of the individual. The individual was not to seek his own interest or expression. He was not to determine his or her own ambition or ends. Varnashram dharma exalted the society at the cost of human values. So caste was given most importance, not to individuals' interests or ambitions or expressions. Government as a partnership of the upper varnas. In ancient India, the Kshatriyas, Brahmins, and later the Vaishyas together formed the ruling class. The Shudras were the serving class. Kshatra, the temporal power, derived its strength and authority from Brahm, the spiritual power. The Shudras were not considered as a part of their group. They were considered down. Coronation by the priest was a necessary prerequisite to the exercise of royal power. Whatever duties royal power was to be exercised, the coronation by the priest was very important. Symbolically, it meant that the Kshatriya derived his power from the Brahman. So the Kshatriya group derived its power and strength from the spiritual power, which was considered the Brahman. No clear distinction between state and society. As such, there is no clear distinction that here is a state and here is a society. Both are its parts, or both are related to each other. The governmental organization and politics were looked at as a part of the larger whole called society. In other words, society was at once religious, political, economical, and military. So all these words were considered a part of society only, and the governmental organization and politics was again considered a part of society only. So the whole is a society, and political, economical, these are all its parts. It was generally viewed in a comprehensive manner. The habit of looking at society from a political angle was not cultivated. As a result, there was no clear conception of either the state or the government. Both were interchangeable terms. As there was no habit of looking society from the point of view of political angle, that is why there was no clear conception or understanding of what the state or the government was. Monarchy. That was a normal form of government. Since the fourfold division of society entrusted the ruling power with the Kshatriya caste, monarchy was the natural outcome. Since only one power, only one particular group was holding the power or was ruling, so monarchy was the obvious outcome. Monarchy, where one particular group rules. There were also non-monarchical forms of government. Kautilya's Arthashastra, for example, mentions Dvairajya, rule by two kings. Vrajya, state without a king. Kautilya also mentions where two kings rule and where a state where a king does not rule. The government was not sovereign. From its very nature of existence, the government in ancient India could not be regarded as sovereign in the Augustinian sense of the term. It did not impart validity to the orders, rather it shared in its validity. On the contrary, the government had no independent existence of its own. The government had no independent existence of its own. It was just considered a part of the greater world. What are the other distinguishing features? Apart from the above mentioned characteristics, Professor Bhiku Parekh mentioned some other distinguishing features of the Hindu political traditions. What are they? First, the Hindu tradition is basically inegalitarian. Second, the Hindu tradition of political thought is pluralistic in orientation, means different people live or different kind of people live here. It's plural, different groups exist. Third, political thought in early India was largely uncritical and apologetic of the established social order. It was not critical, it does not criticize much. Fourth, many Hindu writers wrote mainly for the attention of the rulers. Lot of concepts were written only for seeking the attention of the rulers. Buddhist contributions to Indian political traditions. What have the Buddhists contributed to Indian political traditions? Origin of kingship. In contrast to Brahmanical literature, we have a different version of the origin of kingship in Buddhist literature. The divine origin theory is not accepted. We have innumerable instances in the jhatkas of elections for the royal office. These revolts were justified on the grounds that the kingship arose out of a contract between the subjects and the one chosen by them. That there was a contract साइन किया गया kingship, kings और उनके लोगों के द्वारा, उन दोनों के बीच में, जहाँ पे the kingship arose means जहाँ पर एक ऐसी kingship मतलब ऐसी एक concept निकाला गया. The sovereign rights of the king were limited to the protection of the subjects and punishment of wrongdoers, and he was bound by the law. Whatever rights of the king were, वो सिर्फ अपने लोगों की सुरक्षा करेगा, means he or she has to protect the subjects or the people, and whatever any wrongdoing or any person does anything wrong, punishment has to be granted, and the king was also bound by the rules of the law. Next, democratic nature of the Buddhist Sangha. Professor Davids is of the opinion that the Buddhist Sangha was founded upon democratic principles. According to him, the Buddhist Sangha was a kind of republic in which all proceedings were settled by resolutions agreed upon in regular meetings of its members, which were held subject to the observance of certain established regulations and the use of certain form of words. These forms and resolutions passed were called as Kamavakas. Theory of the origin of the state. The theory of the origin of the state is found in the Ginakya. According to it, there prevailed a golden age of harmony and happiness on earth, and people being virtuous led a happy and peaceful life. But after a long period, people became greedy and selfish. Other evils also crept in subsequently. According to this particular theory, it's said that first people led a very happy and peaceful life, but slowly when complexities or when difficulties start, slowly and gradually people become greedy, selfish, and other kind of wrongdoings also starts happening in society. The salient features of the Buddhist theory of social evolution are that it's the continuous moral and physical decline which necessitated a social and political order. The principle of righteousness. In the Buddhist literature, Danda does not have a central role. Dharma is to be upheld in more positive ways. The principle of righteousness is different from the Brahmanical conception of Dharma. It's closer to the Western conception of virtue. According to Brahmanical literature, there is a different set of ethical principles for the king. What is adharma to the ordinary people becomes a dharma to the king. When he is engaged in protecting the social order, this is called Rajdharma, when the king has the moral duty of protecting its subjects. Contribution of Muslim rule to Indian political traditions. Islamic contribution to Indian political thought can be seen during the medieval period. Though the Muslim rulers derived legitimacy for their authority from the caliph, they had to come to terms with the local reality in which all the diktat of a theocratic state could not be practiced. The nature of state can be said that, at least in theory, the state was theocratic in nature. The ruler adopted dual policy, one for his co-religious subjects and another for the non-Muslims. According to Abul Fazl, no dignity is higher in the eyes of the god than duality. Divinity of the king. N.E. Akbari describes the king as a light emanating from God and a ray from the sun, the illuminator of the universe. They are a paternal love towards subjects, a large heart, increasing trust in God, prayer and devotion, where the king has to have that paternal love, means a father-like love towards his subjects, towards his people, a large heart, trust in God, prayer and trust and devotion. Divinity of the king. Duties of the king to ensure the safety and security of the life and properties of subjects, punishing those who violate norms of the state, impart justice to all without favor, protect the state from external aggression. The king has to lead the people by personal example. Upon his conduct depends the efficacy of any course of action. So upon his conduct lies other things. So these are some of the tasks you have to do it yourself. Discuss in brief the nature and duties of the king found in medieval literature. Whatever we discussed, you have to discuss in brief the nature and duties of the king, as well as explain the concepts of righteousness. Righteousness means the thing which is done in the right manner. So what were the concepts which we discussed? Thank you. Happy learning. We learning.